Have you heard about the NFID Foundation yet? They are spearheading the SSI, that's Self-Sovereign Identity movement, towards decentralized verifiable credentials. NFID exists to help companies launch products which reduce the costs of regulatory risk associated with collecting and storing PII, that's personally identifiable information, by eliminating the need for having it in the first place. Learn more about NFID and collaborate with current member companies who specialize in physical identity and access control. Visit nfid.foundation for more information.
You're only as secure as you choose to be with respect to being inconvenienced. Unfortunately, human beings, as you well know, do not like to be inconvenienced. They like convenience. They want ease of use. They want what we call frictionless activities. Unfortunately, security is a friction-based process. It adds layers to ensure validity of the individual as well as validity of this process. That also means that you're creating a structure so that you can identify potential threats. So that means you create barriers and blockers to prevent certain actions and transactions. With every moment you work on security, there's 3 other moments that are going against you.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to the Aid to Entry podcast, and thanks for tuning in however or wherever you found us. At Aid to Entry, we speak with executives, tech geeks, influencers, and changemakers who are embracing new identity technologies in the digital transformation of physical and online access. Now, what does that mean? Stay tuned, listen closely, and you'll find out. Because what we're talking about affects every part of society. In Season 1, we'll mostly focus on physical security. We will talk with leading security experts in the industry who are beginning to see what I refer to as the art of the possible, which is using new identity technology solutions for creating a more touchless, mobile, frictionless experience for their end user customers. In this case, we're talking about physical and online access permissions at work and at play. Everything from boarding an airplane, getting approved for a home loan, going to a stadium to see your favorite sports team or concert, paying your taxes online, to logging onto your computer at work, or just having a work door open because you have access permission using Aid to Entry technology. I call it moving from a Flintstones to Jetsons world, and it's happening before our eyes if you look for it. Critical to the conversation, though, we also need to be able to look at the legal, privacy, compliance, and trust issues we must take into consideration as we continue down this path. We need to educate the public about what businesses are doing with our PII, personally identifiable information, our data. I'm your host and tour guide, Doug O'Gordon, Chief Identity Hunter at Get to the Point Media. Now let's get to the point. All right, so we're live. And I'm excited to be here. It's Season 1, Episode 6, and I'm thrilled to introduce you to Pierre Bourgeix, who's the CEO and founder of ESI Convergent, a consulting firm working with manufacturers and users in the IT/OT, physical, and cybersecurity space. They've been around since 2017. Pierre's been very involved with physical IT, OT, hardware, software, sales and design. And this is going to be an awesome discussion because we're going to be talking about Pierre's personal experiences, and he will help guide us and kind of give you insights on where you should be headed with your access and identity solutions for your business. Because I always say every building is a snowflake and every vertical market has unique challenges. Pierre is a road warrior, a sales guru, and he's a familiar face in the security industry market. He presents live at many events across the planet, I'll say. And what I refer to what he talks about is the art of the possible. Pierre, welcome to the podcast.
Wow, that was fantastic. Great introduction. Yeah, and I think ESI, as well as Pierre Bourgeix, in terms of the persona, has always been a part of change, and the industry itself has seen that change from the convergence of IT, physical security, now the convergence of IT, industrial IoT, OT, and physical security as a whole has transformed into, I believe, in a way, the new frontier of technology. I mean, we're adopting and adapting to the very changes of this industry and what's happening in terms of the industrial revolution, the new industrial revolution, which is taking place around us. So it's exciting.
Security's grown up,
I
I
do
guess.
travel a great deal. The industry is I think it's at a point where we're past first base. We're running around, the bases to second. Still got a ways to go in terms of education and investment in the right places. But I think at the end of the day, I think we've got a lot of the building blocks in place. Um,
I like it that we're behind a little bit because it gives us time to catch up.
I know. So if a person like myself who worked in the government and crossed many different industries in technology, and was in cyber and IT and has been in cyber and IT, right? Um, it was frustrating. Let's just put it this way. It was frustrating, and I think that now I'm less frustrated, which is wonderful. And I think with that has become an awareness by virtually everyone, understanding what is important. The art of the possible is now tied to the possible.
Awesome. So right out of the gate, my next question to you will be: this podcast airs the week before ISC West. So ISC West is what I call the Walt Disney World of physical security for North America. It really kicks off the year. Jan Feb's a sleeper. March, everybody starts planning, and April's really the kickoff. What do you expect to get out of ISC West this year? What's on your main agenda?
So, what obviously, there are two things I'm speaking about. One of which is um, the, the implementation of security within the architectural plan, right? Of building not only technology within buildings, but also technology within smart cities applications. Um, so one of the challenges is because we have of course, a new world of AI, a new world of technology. The adoption of security within that architectural plan that we call Division 8 and the beginning stages is a need. It's not a want anymore. It's a need. But we're still fighting that in our world because things weren't built the same way. Security came last usually, and we're trying to get security to become more first than last, so that buildings are designed with security in mind. This is very clearly tied to the network infrastructure, et cetera. So we're bridging that, and again, there's a lot involved in that conversation, and we can hit that as we mature a little further. But that's I'm speaking on a panel, and then the second one is the biggest conversation is AI. Um, so we are very heavily involved in that, working with companies such as Intel and NVIDIA. Um, I would say, we are the consultants in the security industry that deal with that the most. I mean, we are the experts in that
So
world.
I call it game changing tech.
I would say it's even bigger than that, almost. I mean, I know game changing sounds like a big term, but I think it's almost revolutionary.
Game changing tech. What do you see, or what do you think you'll see next week at ISC West that's a game changer on the show floor?
So I think, yeah. So I think that it's the riches are in the niches. I think that game changing technology is the adoption of machine learning and deep learning in terms of how it's applied to taking technology into unification and unifying technology across the entire framework. So we're no longer just talking about, the security elements. We're talking about the business elements, and we're talking about unifying technology from the the fence line all the way to the back office. And technology has become that conversation within securities.
With this next question, I said, how much do you get involved with the cyberness of physical security today? How do you see the physical security market adopting and adapting to cybersecurity?
So in different levels, right? So from the standpoint of deployment, right? So we see two pieces of the puzzle, right? We have the manufacturers developing and becoming more cyber secure, and they've been doing that for the last 10 years effectively. And within the last 5 years, truly, right? Companies being building technology that is has security in mind, right? That's the first phase. Second phase of this evolution is how to deploy technology securely and how to build this into a framework that basically is acceptable. So when we talk about NIST standards and we talk about the U.S. Cyber standards as well as European cyber standards and global cyber standards, these are all critical components of that. So ISO 27001, and we look at different levels of security within cyber, and IT plays a major role now.
Can we trust what's going on with all this interconnectedness technology? I mean, just today or this week, Apple's in the news. There's been another hardware hack. I don't think that's interconnected though, the hardware hack. But Apple and other connected devices, can we trust what's going on? On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 is a train wreck and 10 is nirvana. Where are we with interconnectedness in our lives?
Well, let's just put it this way, okay? You're only as secure as you choose to be with respect to being inconvenienced by security. So, unfortunately, human beings, as you well know, do not like to be inconvenienced. They like convenience. They want ease of use. They want, we call, frictionless activities. Unfortunately, security is a friction-based process. It adds layers to ensure validity of the individual as well as validity of this process. That also means that you're creating a structure so that you can identify potential threats. So that means you create barriers and blockers to prevent certain actions and transactions. With every moment you work on security, there's 3 other moments that are going against you by those who are, nation state hackers and syndicates. Unfortunately, there's no option here. We live in a sewer. We work around a system that's like a sewer. Okay, there are no caps. It's an open sewer. It's like the 1800s. And so the challenge is this, right? As we connect 76 to 100 billion devices, we are opening up arenas to allow ingestion to take place. When ingestion takes place of metadata and data, you want to use that data with AI or with, say, NVIDIA and others, say Metropolis and systems that have been developed to maximize the data fields and create a visible use to use that data. It becomes even harder to prevent the nation state hackers and syndicates from getting in. So we have to qualify and quantify that in the same process as what we want to do with the technology. So it's not that we're going to stop. We're not. We're going to keep on growing in this process. But in the meantime, we have to build solutions, and those who are building these solutions to ensure that there's protections, right? I mean, there are companies you're going to find on the floor in the ISC West that are starting to monitor, the routers and LMN technology. They have an Edge Connect. You have security things that do things on the camera edge. The reality is that we all know that one thing is real: is identity management is critical. It's no longer acceptable just to have access management, right? It's not, you go to you get a key, right? And you use a key, right? And that's your card. Well, that card, either be secure or non-secure, is not a very good representation of you, okay? And with that in mind, creates an entire ecosystem of concern, right? The concerns of the ecosystem. When we talk about GLBA in Europe, why did that happen? It's privacy. It's privacy of information. Information. It started there.
How do we get privacy, trust, and consent built inside the enterprise when
So when we talk about validation, so validating an individual, there's a first piece of the puzzle, right? Which is my ownership of my individual right to accept that I will allow you to know who I am. Okay, that's the first part, right? That's me. Me telling you, I'm giving you the right to know who I am. So how do I do that? Well, I have to create a way to register me, right? I've got to register myself into this process to give consent, right? To the fact that I'm willing for you to know who I am. So once that takes place, right? So you've been registered, you have to have a device, some format, either be it a phone with a biometric signature or a card or anything along those lines, right? So the phone has become, the frictionless device because we use it to do everything. It becomes a part of us. Now, all of us know that if we lose that phone, we become frantic. We fear the world will come to an end. And because we have added that as part of our biology, okay? I know very hard for people to believe, but we become one with technology to a certain degree. So with that in mind, so now you've given permission for your counter, right? Your counter, that you've got to bridge the counter to the other, to the business, or to the facilitator of entry. Who is that person? Who is that company? I've given permission. They've registered me. We've done it a variety of different ways. We've done it by a picture, all right, some form of a format of picture, a fingerprint, an eye retinal, or something along those lines that allow us to connect the registrar to the registry, right? Now, I am given a key, right? And that key is got to be secure, so it's got to be given to you, and you put it onto your phone, which is your, part of your body at this point. So when you use that phone, or you're given a credential that has a biometric, signature on it, you're validating that as I'm walking in to this beautiful world, I am validated as who I am, and it can be done digitally or with a biometric card. Right? With that in mind, that is in effect, the challenge, because you have to build a structure that can be trusted and secured, so that the person's privacy is never obfuscated by someone else.
Where do you see this technology shaping up in the physical world?
So in the physical world, where it's going to be needed, frankly, is the ability to manage the mechanism of business, right? So when we talk about the mechanism of business, that could be your laptop, that could be a machine, that could be a traditional copier, okay, an operational infrastructure machine that's being used for any industrial use, okay? Why this is important is that we then begin to start to leaf in authorization and permission in terms of use. And what that allows us also to do is another mechanism of tracking, but it's typically a more mechanism of safety. So when we talk about duty of care, right, for an employer, duty of care now ties back to how do we treat our employees and how do we ensure their safety. So we don't want a employee, to be using a system that could potentially harm them, or could be using a laptop improperly or a machine improperly or data improperly that could hurt the company. So this is called duty of care, and duty of care is not just a piece of a puzzle that the employer has to deal with, it's the employee as well. You have a duty of care to yourself and to the employer that you're serving. So it's a two-way street. It's a freeway, and it's a two-way street.
And the credential's the bridge.
Yeah. So this is a credential. This is the unification of credentialing, unification of technology, and how people, process, and technology now can truly unify, right, in terms of the entire process of business. So when we talk about how does technology solve business problems, this is exactly what I'm talking about.
All right, so Pierre, we got to like what I really wanted to talk to you about was it's all about privacy, trust, and consent. And last fall, we had our first event, which was BIPA Buzz turns 15. It was all based around the Biometric Information Privacy Act, which is only in Illinois. Um, it's an annual event now. We are going to be doing this the first week in October. October 3rd's the target date. It may move up or may move back. I'm wrestling with the date a little bit, but that's where we'll roast or celebrate the past, present, future of BIPA. And this year it's the Sweet 16, so we'll have a big party. But from last year's event, what was your takeaway? What was your learning, or when you can't sleep at night and things run through your head, and you think about the BIPA event that we had last fall? What did you learn?
Well, I think that the challenge with government is that they do not have a clarity in regards to what laws could possibly do to affect and stifle technology or innovation. And what ends up happening with, say, the BIPA law is the fact that the laws themselves have become onerous to the point where it becomes almost impossible to, in effect, innovate and use to a certain degree technology for public good. And I think that what it boils down to is that, we talk about duty of care. I thought about this actually. This is just something we should probably present to the state of Illinois and say, what level of duty of care are you truly doing with this law? Because this law is almost contrary to duty of care. And if you are being hired to protect and serve, what part of that are you protecting?
I refer to it as the Mad Max state, or I call it the tech desert state. I eventually think that Illinois could be that one state in the middle of the country where if you don't want tech, maybe you move to Illinois. They're like shutting down the use of technology to a point where if you watch the movie Mad Max with Mel Gibson, the original one that was cool, that's what it could be like in Illinois, I think, in about 20 years.
Right. So the authority to have jurisdiction can make a decision at will based upon what they feel, right, is right or wrong. I feel that's what BIPA did, right? It created, an emotional response and created a law around emotions versus really looking at it scientifically. And I think with that in mind, it becomes very dangerous when you start, using emotion to make decisions. It is we've seen it time after time throughout history when countries and municipalities make these decisions through emotion, and then have to deal with the consequences at a later date, right?
Pierre, you had. I'll give the audience your top three quotes, and I'll just let you riff on them from the panel. You mentioned this earlier, but you said it's a law that is just onerous and is a money grab, and I think that's all it is. Nothing more, nothing less. Just that. You care to add anything to that? I mean, that's pretty much it. Is what it is.
No, I unfortunately I think there were good intentions initially, but like anything, right? That loses context over time, and especially if you don't revise or review it properly to really adapt to technology and the changes, it becomes invalid and also becomes onerous because you're doing exactly the opposite of what you intended.
Your other quote was, "There's a lot to chew on here because the insurance industry is really part of this equation. If we're going to move forward with protecting people, and you mentioned duty of care, we really have to have something established that involves insurance to protect the people." What's your riff on that?
Well, inevitably, any any technology, right, has to be deployed correctly. We all know that. That's a fact. If you're deployed incorrectly, you get the wrong results. And then if you're building technology and it's not built with security in mind and privacy in mind, then you're also not doing the right thing. So the insurance industry is part of an equation only because to validate, a technology that does do the right thing, you have to protect yourself from the inevitable problem. Is if it's not done well, how do I insure myself from that? And so I think that tying this to a bond, a construction bond that says the commissioning has to be very clear in regards to the outcome and what is the outcome and does it do what it's supposed to do. Also tying a lot of this to privacy and consent. If you build or you architect a solution and you build with privacy and consent in mind and commission it, then you should be in good shape. But there's got to be teeth to why you would do it, because a lot of construction companies, a lot of companies in the construction world don't want to spend, or the end users don't want to spend extra money to they want the low bid, and that low bid sometimes doesn't have all that in place. So if you don't put some form of teeth to this, say, oh, we're not going to give you a bond because we want a performance bond tied this, and we're going to say that if you don't do these things and you don't use these type of products, we're not going to give you the insurance and we're not going to even, we're not going to back you.
Your third quote was, "At the end of the day, if you don't really follow some type of framework, guidelines, we really don't know how to move forward or define our future state." Is what it's your big, that's your big pitch to the industry, is what's your future state. And our future state is where we're at right now. We just don't know we're at this future state of deciding how to move forward.
And if you don't have clarity in that, how does anybody follow anything? I mean, there are companies in Illinois that are going to manufacturers and saying, well, we need this problem solved. Well, we have a product that can solve it, but we have to make sure that it doesn't, cross the line in regards to BIPA violations. And it's a very large corporation globally. So we're doing work in that world trying to help the end user as much as help the manufacturer get the job done. And so it is a slippery issue.
In the chat, I'm going to throw in the transcript, which is a 10-page with pictures and illustrations and maybe some of Pierre's graphs and charts of the BIPA event we had. So it's 10 pages, 6,000 words, from October 6th last year on the Art of the Possible panel that you guys did at the BIPA event. Thank you for doing that again. Extremely hot topic around BIPA right now, like this week. And this week in Illinois is today is the 23rd. So on the 22nd, yesterday, there was supposed to be a ruling to the amendment that did not occur. They did not get to it. I believe they're on vacation now for 2 weeks. So in April, it will be the monster will appear again. The amendment on the House floor of Illinois will raise its head, and I wanted to just mention the Senate Bill 2979. And again, I live in Illinois, so I go down there and listen to it on the House floor. And situational awareness for the security industry, I kind of see them sweating a little bit now, where the lawyers and the politicians are both now going, oh my gosh, we got this law and no one's coming here anymore. So what do we do? So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Um, the amendment is called SB 2979, and I was just going to give you the three. I'll read the amendment portion, and I'll let you riff on these three things. So the three things they're looking at changing are electronic signature, written release, and then changing the violation from a per scan to a per person. So I'm going to read you what this amendment is for electronic signature. In the amendment, it says electronic signature defines electronic signature as an electronic sound, symbol, or process attached to or logically associated with a record and executed or adopted by a person with the intent to sign the record. What do you think that means?
Doesn't mean anything. Because what they just said, what they basically said is that they've explained what they believe is an electronic signature. Okay? So they've stated this is an electronic signature. But they don't say one word about saying is it viable or not.
All right, so the next one is written release. And in the amendment, it says written release provides that written release includes an electronic signature.
So they're accepting the electronic signature as a signature, which is good. That's actually a good thing. So if that's the case, because in Ohio they accept electronic signature, okay. So in certain, and that, it just makes it much easier to conduct business by accepting electronic signature.
Number three, I know this one's good, but it's changing the violation from a per scan to a per person. And in the law, I'll just read the law, provides that a private entity that more than once collects or discloses a person's biometric identifier or biometric information from the same person in violation of the act has committed a single violation for which the aggrieved person is entitled to at most one recovery. So that means the White Castle case that's 17 billion turns into 500 million or something like that.
So yeah, I think that what it boils down to is this. That makes sense. I mean, at least you're now applying it to a person, and then you're only saying that you can do it once, and so at least we then start getting into some reality. What they should also, obviously, what I don't hear them doing is identifying, what consent means from a technology perspective, and so applying the rule to technology. So how do you apply the rule to technology? What's a biometric signature requirement? What is a camera? The use of video. So what's the differentiation between use of video in entry versus video in the native field, right? So field of view, and recognizing human beings without consent is wrong, right? So you can consider their clothing, you can consider what they're wearing, consider, maybe you can consider ethnicity, but you can't consider who, right? Who it is. That is what failed in Israel, and that was a big problem back 10 years ago. I would say 5 to 10 years ago.
I find there's two things missing from the amendment. They refer to this changing of the violation per scan to per person as the private right of action part they're changing, but private right of action means something different, and I will read the definition of private right of action. Private right of action is a legal proceeding initiated by a private individual or an entity to enforce, to protect their rights, seek redress from a wrong, or punish a public offense. So the example is a person sues their neighbor for damages caused by their negligence in maintaining their property. Um, that's not private right of action. This change from many to one violation. There's usually a regulator put into place that would manage this process, or like you said, the AHJ or the.
No, some form of a regulator that would actually attest to of this as being valid, right? Because the reality is, what they're saying is they have the privilege of just defining that through the rule of law without really determining if the violation truly violated anything.
So then, yeah, the other two things are in not in the amendment are any discussion on retroactivity, you know, and then also no mention of safe harbor, which I know the security industry really wants to push because, like you said, duty of care. Maybe in the security industry, there's a special safe harbor if you really want to protect people. There might be a few options to, um, what's the word, exempt the security industry because the federal government has an exemption from BIPA right now, federal, so they can use whatever they want on us. Should there be a national privacy law that would cover all this for all of us in the U.S.?
Well, so we are so ESI, and I'm not going to release what it is and how it is, but we are working on. Um, we will call it an AI specification tied to CSI. So see the CSI format, and
What is CSI? I
uh,
don't know what you know. Do you know what
it
CSI is?
is the construction. It's yeah, it's the construction. It's the security industry format for design, right? So everyone uses it for engineering design. Okay, the CSI format, and so anyway, this is a combined work with NVIDIA and a few others. So we are trying to develop some of those standards or a standard. So this is the beginning. We just
We're
began this
we're at the
process.
starting
So
line, right? I
um,
keep hearing that. Like we're ready
we're
to
at the
we're ready
start.
to
We're at the
jog.
starting.
We're gonna warm up here.
I think I think we're ready to start, and this has been a long time coming. I know that NVIDIA needs it because you can't specify presently AI, and that is going to happen. Thanks to ESI and thanks to NVIDIA and the ecosystem partners and a few specific partners we're working with in the industry.
We made it to the speed round. I'm going to throw some questions at you, and you're going to make these really short responses. In your world today, what's the elephant in the room?
Use of AI.
What is your real world digital transformation experience?
I mean, I think when I learned and understood virtualization in the beginning of what cloud is today, and I was working with a company called GTech Serve out of Charlotte, North Carolina, and I started really understanding the art of the possible of how we could actually work with the network infrastructure in a virtualized environment off prem and use all that data and resources so that you didn't have to have it sitting under your table in a server, wasting, getting dusted and destroyed in the process. So, and then I think the next part of that is also storage, right? The ability to use offsite virtualization and storage, which became even more interesting. And this is even before really AWS, or we'll just say Amazon, was even around. So that was going back 2003. I mean, four. So it was crazy times.
Are biometrics and AI for identity and authentication safe or unsafe at any speed?
I think there's legitimately some concern, but I think for the most part, I think if as long as we are applying security measures in ensuring protection tied to identity and the protection within technology, right? Not just the governance of that, I think we'll be okay. I think it's inevitable anyway. We have to format that, right? And what that looks like. How things change is amazing, what could happen. But for now, We have to have a starting point.
Everybody has a body. Every body part's a biometric if you didn't know it. What's your favorite or most interesting biometric modality to talk about and why?
Well, I think voice is going to be interesting. I think multi-factor authentication with the use of voice is, as long as it cannot be replicated, and there are certain avenues and how that can be done. I think that's interesting because we are working with a couple companies that we're learning a lot as we go right now. But I think that there's definitely something there, and I think that the way it's being used and how it's going to be used in the near future could change a lot of things. It could help us a great deal, actually.
Vacation destination, beach or mountains, location if you want to provide it. And then do you like familiar or uncharted vacation waters?
Mountain, it would be, basically Blue Ridge Mountains, anywhere along those lines. I love that. Beautiful. Also love the Sierras, Mammoth Mountain, beautiful place. Um, Beach, I think certain destinations in Florida are fine. I love them. Or, uh, you know, exotic beaches would be great. I've been unfortunately to those beaches, but under terrible circumstances in the government. In Asia and other places. But yeah, that's kind of my thought right now.
Would you use new identity technology to authenticate yourself during your travels?
Yeah, I think I would. I'm okay with that.
Awesome. How many times a day do you use aid to entry technology for physical and online access permissions?
Constantly, constantly, the whole day.
I just added this one. So this week there was another big security door hardware hack with locks being unsecure, aka anyone can get into your hotel room. What's the quick fix for that problem, Pierre? Or is there one? Does that mean truck rolls have to happen and people have to fix that at the door? Are these interconnected or are these?
I think no, no, no. I think they're absolutely connected to better card infrastructure, right? So using more of a biometric signature on a card, making it affordable, or the phone. But the problem with the phone, unfortunately, is that if it dies, then you're stuck, right? I mean, if a lot of people get home after a party, it's 2 a.m. and your phone's dead because you're in New York City, and you no way to get into the door. And frankly, if you don't have another option, you're kind of screwed.
So as we close out our discussion on the aid to entry art of the possible, I always like to ask in closing, what does that mean to you physically and digitally?
Well, I mean, it's critical for me. Authentication, access control in the IT world has been critical from the beginning. You have to identify the individual as they enter into the software or hardware domain from the standpoint of IT. So for me, I've been living with it forever. I think the physical security world just realizing how bloody important it is. But I hate to tell it, the security industry, but 25 years ago, they created FICAM and ICAM, which is exactly what the government told you to do. So it wouldn't just apply to cybersecurity or IT infrastructure. It also applied to physical infrastructure.
Okay, did I miss anything you wanted to talk about? Any shameless plugs? Any side projects?
No, shameless plugs. ESI is promoting their new cyber and IT program for the commercial industry and the security industry. We just picked up a person, Maria Schmidt, who actually built Cyber Command for New York City. Brilliant, brilliant person. She's going to run the program, and we're excited, and we're going to be really showing that off at ISC West, and we're about to really launch a new program for we'll say AI, or if you want to call it whatever you want to call it, but AI specification, and really building that model around CSI format. So it's a bright, beautiful world. A lot of work ahead of us. A lot of business to be made, and let's change the world one person at a time.
Awesome. And the best way for our listeners, viewers, to connect with you?
I listen. I would say LinkedIn is a great one. Connect with me on LinkedIn.
Spell your last name so they could type it into their computers.
Oh, Bourgeix. So it's Pierre, Pierre, or and last name Bourgeix. So that's the best. LinkedIn's great, and then Pierre at esiconvergent.com, GENT, not GINT, and you'll be good to go.
So we're gonna like lay a bunch of valuable links in the chat on all these acronyms and people and discussions we talked about, especially the BIPA turns 15 panel you did, all available for downloading. And Pierre Bourgeix, I just want to thank you. I learned a lot. I hope somebody out there learned something, and we really appreciate your time.
We all learned something at some days.
Oh yeah, I learned like two things, and I'm going to talk to you about it right after this because I think there's some opportunities. Thank you for being on season 1, episode 6. We're closing the show. Next season will be, I don't know what we'll do next season. We're gonna maybe interview thought leaders from ISC West, or I was thinking of maybe interviewing identity consultants who could be talking to people like you and manufacturers in the physical security world. We're at the starting line, and those guys could help us. Thanks for your time again. And as we close, I'll leave you with this. Let's get serious about physical access control, and let's get it under control.